I didn't realize you had 69% of OWN's programming. When you started off, did you envision yourself being a media mogul like this and shaping reality TV?
Listen, I knew since I was 12 years old that I wanted to have a career in entertainment. As a teenager, I would watch the Oprah Winfrey Show every single day at 4 o'clock on Channel 7 in Detroit, Michigan, with my mama. So it's interesting how years later, my adulthood, my dreams are coming true, and I get to supply shows for a woman's network who I admire for so long. So to have 69% of the programming on Miss Winfrey's network is, I mean, it's nothing but God's blessing and grace, honestly.
So, coming from that perspective, the Love and Marriage franchise continues to grow. What do you think it is about this franchise that people have attached to?
I think people are interested in couples, right? For the longest time, starting, I want to say back in 2008, when like the Real Housewives of Atlanta came out, and then you have Basketball Wives after that. There was such this big concentration, Jill, with female ensemble shows. And it was great to see the perspective of what women were going through in their relationships with each other. But with the Love and Marriage franchise, it's the first reality show, if you think about it, where the husband and the wife are both on equal playing level field, right? The husband is not behind the woman, and the woman is not behind the man. They're equal in this sense, and they're both co-stars of this show. So a lot of men do watch the Love and Marriage franchise. They're okay watching it with their wives or fiancés or girlfriends. And people are into what couples go through. That's why you see a lot of podcasts, honey, about relationships, and these men don't know what they be talking about half the time. But that's the beauty of the access that the world has with being like, this is how men really think, or this is how men really talk. So when you think about like Kimmy and Maurice's from Love and Marriage, when you think about like their conversations about like sex and co-parenting and all those things, you're sort of like, I can't believe this is happening. So I think that reality is what gets people, going.
So, you have helped shape many shows, you've had your own shows. What do you look for when you're casting or when you're trying to put together that perfect chemistry?
I know a star when I see one. I do have this gift where I know instantly when I see a star. I know like, oh, you're going to bring something valuable to this particular show, whether it's just their honesty, their relatability, their vulnerability, their personality. I look at all those things, and it's interesting because when you look at my shows, each woman or male, they're all different. And that's the beauty of an ensemble show. You have to make sure that each person brings something different to the table. So I look for honesty and vulnerability and somebody who really just wants to work hard to give their real life to the audience because it is hard to be talked about on social media when you're just being yourself. Like I know what that feels like and it don't feel good. But that's why sometimes you have to understand that as long as you're able to say, that was me, may not be my finest moment, but I'm able to learn from it. So I hope with my shows, my cast, that they're all able to learn something from being on the show.
So, you've made such an impact in this space. What are some areas or some ideas that you want to touch on in the future, perhaps, that you feel like haven't been explored or fully fleshed out?
I love telling stories. I would love to tell more stories about queer relationships, especially in the Black community. I know a lot of Black queer couples and individuals that I feel like have a story. So I would love to see that. I feel like that's an area that is missing in terms of the queer community seeing somebody on television who represents them and not being seen as an accessory or afterthought, right? So I think that's the one area that I don't see on television that I would like to really try to bring back. I had a show called Styling Hollywood on Netflix. that star Jason Bolden and Adair Curtis, who are this amazing black gay couple
Of
that
them.
style, Dwayne Wade and do tons of stuff in the interior business. So I've done it before, but I want to do it again.
So, as we have moved through reality TV, you mentioned your start in 2008. So, that's like almost 2 decades at this point. Not trying to make you feel anything
Oh
with that.
no, it's the legacy, honey. I
No,
know
that's
what I'm
right.
doing.
Speak to that. So, as we've moved through time, we've seen styles change as far as reality TV, how it's shot, the subject matter to some degree. Where do you think the future of it, even down to the name, if I think about it, because now docuseries is a more popular term, whereas reality TV, it kind of developed a negative connotation.
Mhm.
Where do you see the future of this medium going?
I think people want to see more real people. I think when you look at the success again of Love and Marriage and Bill Collective, people want to see somebody on television who represents them. I love the fact that we were able to tap into two unknown territories, Huntsville, Alabama, and Jackson, Mississippi, and find these beautiful people who live in these sort of like southern rural areas, if you will. And the fact that Huntsville, Alabama, I think it was last year, they were voted the number one destination to not only visit, but to live. So I like to think we put Huntsville on the map for that to happen. So I think that's the future of reality TV. Seeing more real people who don't live in like Atlanta and New York and LA. You want to see more real people who live in other areas. And I think that's what more people want to see.
So, switching gears, you have a podcast that I mentioned, Thriving. And you seem to have a specialty of getting those special tidbits out from your guests and things like that. What's your secret to making your guests feel safe and to open up to you in that way?
I come in with no judgment. I come in and I have great intentions in terms of extracting the truth and the honesty from them. And once they look at me and feel my presence, and these are those who may not know me as well as the others, um, they feel my spirit and they know it's a safe space. I did an interview with somebody last week, actually, and she said to me, I can't believe I'm answering all of your questions because I would never answer this, but you're making me feel so comfortable. I love your spirit. And she said, your spirit makes the devil tremble because she said, when I look in your eyes, I can tell you're a genuine person, and it just makes me want to tell you everything. And I think that's the gift that I have. That's not something that you can like study or go to school for. So I think my personality and my spirit is reflective with the guests that I sit across from, and they know that I'm here to just ask the questions that everybody want to know. I will give my opinion, but in no way, shape, or form am I judging you. What I always try to do, Jill, is I always try to find the the lesson in what they experience. I'm always like, okay, that happened, but you do realize when that happened, it's because something happened to you in your childhood that showed up in that moment. They're like, I didn't look at it that way. So I love those aha moments. And that's the reason why I'm able to get a lot of good guests.
I love that. So, in wrapping up, being a multi pronged creative is something that is relatively new. We see you in different entities, different outlets. At what point did you know that it was important for you to not just stick to the normal course or just do one thing?
You know what's so interesting? Like I said, at 12 years old, when I saw Ananda Lewis host Teen Summit, I'm aging myself. That's when I knew, like, oh, I want to do what she's doing. She's hosting and she's a journalist and she's talking to real people about real things. I was always into like, I like when I could watch something real. I love scripted shows back in the day, The Cosby Show, Martin Living Single. But I was way more fascinated with watching Oprah, Barbara Walters, and Diane Sawyer, and Ananda Lewis, Talk to Real People. I was way more interested in that. So I did have this desire to be a on-camera journalist. So when I went to college, I studied journalism, but I was so focused on like the production aspect of it because I'm such a curious person. And as a journalist, you have to learn everything, as you know, Jill. You have to learn everything about the five W's, right? The who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. And that can sometimes take your on-camera desire to have a back seat. So that happened. But it wasn't until, honestly, a woman named D'Angela Proctor, who was the hit of Unscripted at TV1 at the time, I created Hollywood Divas, and we were looking for a host. And I was pitching all these amazing people. And D'Angela said, "What about you, Carlos? You should host it." I'm like, "What?" She said, "You have a way with these divas. They love you, you love them, and I think you'll do a better job at it." And lo and behold, the rest is history. So it was something that was presented to me, and I just took it and I'm running with it.
Okay, last question. I know I
No, go
said last
ahead.
question, but what advice do you give to young creatives? Because everyone wants to have a podcast, as we mentioned. Everyone wants to be on reality TV. They don't understand some of the work that goes into it, and of course, the different ways that it can impact you beyond just stardom and fame. So, what do you say to those creatives that are out there looking at you and wanting to kind of chart your path like you did with Oprah and Ananda?
Do it for the right reasons. Don't try to do what I do because you want the fame of it. Because I can tell you, being talked about and having people make up lies on you, it don't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good. But I'm able to withstand all of that because of my intention. I love what I do. So when you, Jill, for example, say I watch your podcast and you have a good way of talking to people, I'm way more into that, right? The fame comes along with it, and I receive it, and I try to my best to always remind myself like use the fame for like good, like don't just be famous for the sake of being famous, child, because you will constantly chase fame and do any and everything to do it, and that's when you're going to do something that just doesn't that ain't ethical, baby. And I don't ever want to subscribe to that. So do it for the right reasons. Do it for the love of the art. I wanted this at 12 years old. I'm in my 40s and I'm living out my wildest dreams, but I waited 30 years for this. 30. People can't wait 30 days, child, for anything anymore. So I would say be patient, do the work. Number one, have a relationship with God because you're going to need a higher power to speak to understand all of the many levels of love and pain and heartache and joy that you go through and you grow through in this business. And be yourself. Don't try to be anyone else. There is not one single person who is Carlos King, no
Right.
matter how many try. And I see y'all.
I know that's right. I know that's right. I know that's right. You better point out the imitators. Imitation may be the sincerest form of flattery, but
Okay,
there's
honey.
a
I see it,
reality of it
child.
there.
I see it, honey. I'm like, okay, girl. I see it. I see it. But I would say be yourself. And I spoke recently to somebody who was on his way auditioning, and I ran into him at the parking lot. And he said, "What advice do you give me?" And I said, "Be yourself." He said, "That's it?" I said, "Yes, because God created you in his image, and you have to be yourself to show God, I love who you created me to be, and I'm going to honor you by being successful at being me. So be yourself, and everything will come into fruition."
Amen to that message. But in this era, people don't necessarily even know how to do that. So they got to learn that first.
I know, exactly. It's okay to use a filter, child, but at least you know that I ain't trying to have a human filter on my face when I go to the Piccadilly or to the Publix, honey, to the grocery store. Like, be yourself. It's all good. I promise you. It feels better being yourself, honey, than a carbon copy of someone else.